Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit different. I'm just going to talk into the camera. I don't really have much of a script to work off of. I'm going to be talking about the nature of reality, the secrets of the universe that Nikola Tesla discovered, and how you can use them to really accomplish things that you can't even imagine. Let me just put it that way. Once you understand what Nikola Tesla understood, your view of reality, your view of yourself, and your understanding of what's possible will just undergo this amazing shift. And we're going to talk about that today. And we're going to start with talking about how people view themselves, what people think of when they think of themselves, and how wildly inaccurate their perception of themselves is. And let's go ahead and just start with breaking down the myth. You are not the meat suit. You are not the body. You are not the flesh and the bone and the blood and all of that stuff. You're not even the brain. Your consciousness, the you, the thing that animates the body, the thing that is actually existing, it's not the body. It's not the brain. Consciousness doesn't come from your brain. In fact, your brain is just a receiver for consciousness. And what I mean by that is consciousness is this thing that exists outside of you. Consciousness is everything. It is the sun, the moon, the stars, the wind, the earth, the fire, the water, the rocks, the birds, the bees, and you. You're part of this. And you are one frequency on this major bandwidth of all of this consciousness that's going on all around you. And this consciousness, some people might call it God, some people might call it the all, some people might call it all different kinds of names, but the understanding that the entire universe and even beyond the universe is all made up of this one, either spiritual or some kind of frequency, some kind of consciousness energy that makes up everything in existence. And what you are is your brain allows just a tiny band of that frequency to be picked up, and it allows it to experience itself from a singular point of view. So all of the consciousness that's out there, your brain allows just a tiny bit of that to be injected into your body, and then to be able to experience the miracle, the wonder of everything that is. It's consciousness experiencing itself from an individual, singular point of view. That's what reality is. That's what your life is. That's what your consciousness is. You are a fractal of a bigger consciousness. If you've ever seen fractals, the more you focus in, the more you go deeper into them, they just repeat over and over again. So from 50,000 foot view, it looks like one thing. And as you zoom in on any part of the fractal, you start to notice the same pattern repeating over and over and over again. If you look up transmission holograms, they're a hologram technology where you photograph and put a three-dimensional picture on some film. Transmission holograms, if you cut them in half, instead of cutting and having half of the picture on this side and half of the picture on the other side, when you cut a transmission hologram in half, you actually get the same image now split up into both sides of the hologram, because each part of the hologram encompasses the whole of the hologram. Just like a fractal, each part of the fractal encompasses all of the information of the whole. And we even hear of this in the Bible. When, if you're a religious person, they talk about God creating man in his own image, where the man, the microcosm, is just a reflection of the macrocosm. The man is a fractal of the larger spiritual entity. I believe that this is a universal truth that has been expressed in multiple different ways, but for me, the easiest way to understand it is consciousness is this wide range of different frequencies, or one giant frequency, and your brain, your existence, your consciousness is just a tiny thread of that consciousness experiencing itself as it goes through the point A to point B of your lifespan. And I kind of stumbled upon this way of thinking through self-development as I was trying to become a better business person, as I was trying to become a better person in general. And I started reading all of these self-development books, and I started reading all these books by these people who are great business leaders. I kept hearing these same messages over and over again. Your mindset is so important. The things that you think about are so important. The things that you think about, that you dwell upon, you attract more to. The things in your subconscious mind, the things that are running your subconscious programs, whatever it is that you're dwelling upon, whatever it is that you're focusing upon, your subconscious mind doesn't know if this is what you want or if this is what you want to avoid. All it knows is this is what you're paying a lot of attention to. So your subconscious mind says, this must be important to this person, and it goes out and gets more of that for you. So if you dwell on the things you hate, your subconscious mind goes out and gets you more stuff to be hateful about. If you dwell on the things that you aspire towards or that you love and appreciate, then your subconscious mind goes out and gets you more things to love and appreciate. And one of the things that when I very first started getting into all of this stuff, I came across a book. I can't even remember which book it was, but it just said, you know what? Try to stop complaining for 5 days and watch how much your life changes. Every time you go to complain about something, stop yourself and then instead think about something that you appreciate and watch how your life changes just by this one shift of your attitude and your mindset, and watch how your entire life changes in a span of 5 days. And I was like, that's crazy. That would never, how much can just that one simple habit change? And I did it. And every time I started to notice that I was about to complain or I was in the middle of a complaint, I stopped myself and I said, you know what? Be grateful that, you stubbed your toe and that really hurts. Be grateful that you don't have diabetes that made you have to be amputated and not have a foot at all. You were late to work. Be grateful that you have a job. You were cold in the car. Be grateful that you have a car and you're not out on the street corner begging for change. And so every time I started to complain about something, I would stop and I would instead look at the same situation from an idea or from a perspective of appreciation. What can I appreciate? What am I taking for granted here? What am I not fully embracing the miracle of in this particular situation? And just that one simple thing. And then in combination with for the longest time, I saw myself as a victim. I saw myself as trying to get as much as I can out of the world. And I was trying to get what the world owed me because I had been downtrodden and I had grown up in a poor family and the world owed me. And instead of worrying all the time about what I wanted to get out of every situation, start looking at every situation as what can I give? What can I give in this situation? How can I be of value? Instead of how can I take, how can I provide in this situation? Those two simple shifts in my thinking, stopping complaining and starting to appreciate things, and then stopping focusing on what I wanted to take and starting to focus on what I had to provide. Those two simple mindset shifts completely changed my world around. Within a matter of weeks, all of a sudden people started interacting with me different. The interactions that I had at work with my coworkers started changing. The opportunities that I started having started leveling up. The type of people that wanted to be around me started leveling up. And just by those two mindset shifts, and this was maybe 20 years ago, that I went on this experimental journey of trying to change little aspects of my mindset to see what kind of impacts they would have on my reality and the world around me. And then I started looking into other books and I started finding things like As a Man Thinketh, Think and Grow Rich. I came across Neville Goddard, and I started coming across all these guys that were hinting at, hey, the way you think about things and the things that you believe and the things that you focus on, they not only change how you interact with other people and how you interact with the world, they actually change how people interact with you. And this might sound woo, but they change how the world, how the universe interacts with you. And at that point, I didn't fully understand what I believe now about the nature of reality, but it slowly started leading me down to this point where I started to understand what you appreciate appreciates, what you focus on multiplies. And eventually that led me to the realization that I am participating in the creation of my own reality, that all of us are participating, or if not, taking a very active role in the creation of the reality that we're living, and not just consequences from your actions and your thoughts, but actually you having a two-way communication with the universe. You are part of this greater consciousness. You are a fractal of that consciousness experiencing itself, and it has the ability to communicate to you, and you have the ability to communicate to it. And through the things that you think about, and through the things that you dwell upon, and through the ways that you choose to look at the world, you start communicating to the universe what you want your reality to be like, and the universe starts bringing that to you. And I know this sounds woo, it sounds like the law of attraction, and I think the law of attraction has a little bit of truth into it, but it doesn't really fully go into what all of this is really based upon. And what it's really based upon is a complete shift of understanding of what reality is. You are not separate from the universe around you. You are a part of, you are a fractal, you are a hologram cut in half of the universe around you. You are the universe around you experiencing itself from a singular individualistic point of view. And once I understood that, and once I understood that I had this connection with, and that I could communicate my will to the universe, and it would reciprocate, and it would bring back the things that I wanted, the instructions that I gave to it. And I'm not going to go too deep into what that looks like and how I practice this type of stuff, but I'm just telling you, once I realized, oh, there's something to this, and I started playing around with different ways that other people who came before me have kind of figured this stuff out, and they've figured out ways to communicate with the universe, to impress their will upon the universe and have it reflected back to them. Once I started playing around with some of that stuff, then it became undeniable. Then synchronicities started happening in my life. Then coincidences started happening in my life. Then things that only had been in my head started reflecting in the world around me, and I'm like, okay, there's something here. And then I went back and I started rereading some of these books that kind of led me down this path, some of these self-development or self-improvement gurus, and some of these business development and business improvement gurus, and these people that had been teaching me all about mindset and been teaching me all about how to direct my conscious mind to have it be the guide that leads me to the life that I want to live. And I started rereading some of their material, and I started being like, oh, these guys actually know a lot more than they're letting on. They're letting you know these secrets to the universe, these secrets to consciousness, but they're not just coming out and flat out saying what it actually is. And I don't know if it's because they don't want to sound crazy to their audience. I don't know if it's because sometimes in marketing, we have to tone down the claims, even if the claim is absolutely true. If it's too much for the average person in our market to believe, it's not going to work. It can make you $1,000 overnight, but if people don't believe something can make them $1,000 overnight, we have to tone it down and be like, yo, it'll make you $100 overnight, because that's a lot easier for people to believe. So sometimes the truth is just too much for people to believe, so you got to tone it down a little bit. And I started getting the feeling that a lot of these people that I was reading, Napoleon Hill and Tony Robbins and Rich Dad Poor Dad, what's his name, Robert Kiyosaki, all of these people that I was reading their material, and it was developing this shift subtly, slowly over a number of decades in my mind. I started realizing, hey, these people have this stuff figured out. They're just not telling people the whole story. They're giving people just enough to get results, but not enough to scare them away from what's actually going on. Except that's not always the case. And a clear example of that I have is from a book called The Science of Getting Rich, and it's by Wallace Deloise. I want to say Wallace D. Wattles, and don't make fun of his name. I'm sure he got enough of that in middle school growing up, having a last name like Wattles. But he wrote this book called The Science of Getting Rich, and he wrote this back in 1910. And in the book, he says, and I just recently came across this book, but he says, there is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which in its original state permeates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. Man can form things in his thoughts, and by impressing his thought upon the formless substance can cause the thing he thinks about to be created. And if I would have heard that quote 10, 20 years ago, it probably would have went right over my head and I would have never even thought twice about it. But now, coming across this book recently with this new way of understanding the universe around me, that quote makes so much sense because I've had that exact experience time over time over time in my own existence, in my own life, and especially over the last 2 or 3 years. I keep having these types of experiences where I say, this is what I want. This is what I want next. This is the opportunity that I want to present itself next. And then a day later, that exact opportunity, or 3 days later, that exact opportunity shows up, and it's just too much of a coincidence to be a coincidence. And it's been compounding for me especially over the last year. Every time I want an opportunity, every time I want something to manifest in my life, through different types of meditations and different types of ways of projecting my will into the universe, these things keep happening for me over and over and over again. And not just for me, for the people that I'm working with, for the people that I am doing business with. And it's gotten to the point now where I can't deny that there's some sort of truth to this concept, that there's a thinking stuff in the universe and that we can project our will onto it and it will reflect that in our experience. And again, the reason that I believe all of this is possible is because reality is not the way that it's been explained to us. We are not separate. We are not individuals. We are an individual frequency of this much larger frequency. We are an individual strain of consciousness or strand of consciousness experiencing itself from an individualistic point of view. And I want to finish this episode out with a quote by Nikola Tesla. And if you are somebody who's born in the last 20 years, you probably already know who Nikola Tesla was. You're lucky, you're fortunate, you have the internet. When I was a kid, we didn't have the internet. We had to get all of our education from the school system, and the school system definitely didn't teach us about Nikola Tesla. But for those of you who don't know, Nikola Tesla was one of the greatest thinkers of the last century, and he invented all kinds of stuff. His understanding of the nature of reality was so far above anybody of his time and above most people of our time, to be honest. And Nikola Tesla has this quote. He says, "My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into the secrets of this core, but I know that it exists." And like I said, I'm 100% on board with that way of thinking, with that way of understanding, with that concept of how the universe works. And again, going back to what I started the episode out with today, the understanding that we are not this flesh and bone meat suit. We are not even the brain. Our consciousness doesn't come from our brain. Our brain is a receiver for the consciousness. Our brain is something that allows that frequency to come into existence at this level and be able to experience itself from a singular individualistic point of view. Understanding that you are connected to everything around you, that you are part of consciously or subconsciously everything around you, that you literally are created in the image of your creator. You are a fractal. You are a holographic representation of the consciousness that created everything around you, that you are part of it, that it communicates with you, and that you can communicate with it. And if you can understand that, and if you can bring yourself to start looking into different ways that people before you who understand this truth have figured out how to communicate and how to receive what it is that they want from that greater consciousness out there, you too can have success beyond your wildest dreams. All right, if you enjoyed this week's episode, make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss any of the content that I create for you in the future. My name's Nathan Frazier. I'm the Advertising Alchemist, and I'm out of here. Deuces. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you always catch the content we create for you in the future.